Hello, sweet souls. How are you? How is your heart? I just want to focus there. How is your heart? How is it feeling? Is it feeling immense gratitude? Is it feeling worry, concern? Is it feeling tender? Is it feeling love? No judgment. All is allowed. In fact, if you are feeling contrasting emotions at one point, all at once, you are doing it right. All is allowed. I am here to come in with a different kind of transmission. It's about the ancestors. And I heard the call to speak about them today because your ancestors are waiting for you. And there were a lot of things, synchronicity that just fell into place that made it so it was my mission to arrive here and speak to you about your relationship with the ancestors. So today, I'm going to tell you all about my relationship with the ancestors. I'm going to share information to help you stop being afraid of them because they're here to help you heal. They're here to help you follow the most aligning path. And I even have a message at the end of this transmission for those of you who are scared, who feel fear when you connect to your ancestors. Today, I'm going to tell you some of the truths that no one tells you about connecting to the ancestors, connecting to your lineage. And I'm going to share this from a lifetime of lived experience, connecting with those in other dimensions, and how that has felt at different points in my life, because all is allowed, right? We can feel enthusiasm and excitement, and we can feel fear at the same time. So I'm excited to get into this because this feels like a gift, not just to myself, not just to you as a little YouTube video, but to the ancestors, to the lineages who work with me on a daily basis. First, hi, I'm Maggie. I am a storyteller and a ritualist and a teacher, and I help you hear your soul or your inner voice, that embodied wisdom that's within you that can surface as a language of love that holds you through everything that you're moving through. Today, I'm going to dig into how the ancestors are waiting for you and how they're here to help you connect so that together you can change your life if that's what you want to do, and how they are protecting you, and how there's no reason to fear them. So I'm going to begin with a little bit of a story of my own lifetime, my own connection with them in this lifetime. And I first want to talk about how the ancestors have always been coming to me, right? I have had gifts since I was very young of connecting to the ancestors, to my lineage, to spirit guides, to angels. That was always in my field, especially when I was a child. But I was scared. And I had so much to deal with in my childhood that I just didn't want another thing, right, to figure out, because I was so busy taking care of myself and taking care of many people around me. So I shut them out very early. My nervous system was so dysregulated as I was a child, and it actually continued being dysregulated for a long time. It's only now that I focus on regulating my nervous system every single day. But I was wildly dysregulated as a child, right? And I would even be in rooms, be in my bedroom, be in houses, be anywhere out in the world, and I could sense energy. and I might say it here or there to someone, and everyone just laughed it off, right? I remember having an imaginary friend, and I remember the elders around me watching that relationship and recounting it to me as I got older and laughing about it, right? Thinking it was funny, ha ha, but really it was sweet and beautiful that I developed a connection with something that wished to be present with me, be friendly with me, make me feel safe, right? There was a tremendous hypervigilance in my childhood, and there probably, if you're watching this video, there may have been one for you too. So I was always on alert and I was always aware as a child. And that hypervigilance can actually heighten your sensitivity to energy. And in turn, over time, it increased my perception abilities, not just in the ability to like notice patterns, to notice when a certain pattern was playing out as it normally plays and I was safe, or to notice when the pattern was going off the rails and I might not be safe, but also I had a tendency to be able to pick up on energy, and I would become super sensitive based on the energies in the room. Now I know that that was my gifts just trying to find a way to be alive in me as well, right? So if you feel any of those things, if you felt any of those things, you're not alone. And oftentimes this is a path to developing a relationship with your lineage, with your ancestors who are always, always there for you. So over time, I developed a relationship with myself, right? And I went inward. I went inside and I started to hear my soul's voice. I call it a language of love. It's the calm and all-knowing wisdom that surfaces from within when you get quiet and you listen. And that path of listening to my soul, listening to that voice, was the path to ancestral communication, right? And that path of listening within and trying to understand the texture of my own voice and how it wished to hold me allowed me to sort of tap into different tones of that voice, such that I could recognize when other energies were speaking within me or without me. So I could recognize the tone of my mother, or the tone of my father, or the tone of a great, 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 great grandmother, right? I could hear those tones. They are, I kind of relate them to like the power of a sacred number in the Mayan Sacred Calendar. They're just sort of a slightly different edge. So my soul's voice is what connected me to all the different tones and all the different energies. And eventually it made it possible, once the ancestors felt like they could communicate with me and I could hear and I could communicate back to them, it made it possible for them to appear to me. And my first visualization with the ancestors was actually on a yoga mat, lying prone in Shavasana position, right? I was lying in that position and I invited in my soul to speak to me. And instead of my soul coming in, a visualization came in of two past loved ones. And they spoke with me and communicated with me. And I knew that this gift was moving to another level, right? So the journey inward was listening to the soul and its voice and understanding all the different tones at which that voice could resonate, understanding when it was mine and when it was not mine, and then getting into places where I was so inward that I could see the ancestors in the astral plane, in the meditative state, right? So once I became open to that kind of communication, the ancestors became like far more vocal and present, and they would show up in my dreams, giving me wisdom, right? Sharing what happened, sharing what could happen. And in offering me that, they also said, your energy hygiene is really important. So they sort of had me lock in how I let the energy of the world penetrate me in any way. And also, they made me lock in my sleep hygiene. So I got really conscientious about all of that. You may be hearing a call to do that too. For example, I stopped drinking alcohol. I drink it very rarely. I stopped drinking caffeine. I focused on ceremonial cacao because that facilitates a connection to the earth and to love and to compassion. And for me, that facilitates a connection to the ancestors, because the cacao that I drink and commune with is part of my lineage. And so they called me to it as a way to communicate with them and as a way to develop more sensitivity to it. And in tandem to doing all this development, right? I'm not gonna tell you it was 100% like me being called to it. Yes, it was. And I also worked with psychics over the last 10 plus years, maybe even longer, 15 years, as guidance to develop my own wisdom, to validate and confirm what I was hearing. And it was through working with psychics, like I'd meet with a psychic once a year or twice a year, just to validate what I was hearing. And through that work, the weight of ancestors, dozens of ancestors, really presented itself. It was like I said, okay, not only can I hear and see you, but I'm going to work this muscle even further to validate that we have a language that we're developing between us, right? And psychics would say back to me, I see them behind you. I see so many of them behind you. They have their hands on your back. And I think that goes to the next part, which is like, ancestors are protection and they are support. Period, right? And it's upon us to learn how to ask for that protection and receive their support, right? They're always offering it generally, always. And yet I have decided to be in devotion to that connection on a regular basis, such that I say, hey, here's where I need some help, or here's where I need to understand more. I need you to know that the ancestors are there to hold you and to soothe you, right? They held me and they soothed me, even when things don't go as hoped. Sometimes things work out, right? Sometimes I'm detached enough, I surrender enough, and life surprises me. And sometimes I'm also attached to a particular outcome. I'm a human, right? And the ancestors are there to say, hey, it's okay. You're going to be fine. You're always going to be fine. And I think the shift of like having more regular cross communication with the ancestors came in when they saw that I was going all in on my soul's work. When they saw that I was like, this is it. I'm following the call, whatever the call is for me in any particular moment. In fact, there was a really interesting moment where I made a big decision, and the decision was to move across the country and release my old life and change so many parts of my life, right? And when I made that shift, I remember like ancestors and guides switching out. They presented in a dream to show me that some of them were going to step back and others were going to step forward because I was on a new path. and I needed a different type of strength, right? So I'm going to tell you about my lineage, and then I'm going to tell you about your lineage in a very broad way, right? So my ancestors are diverse. Your ancestors are probably diverse too. I have a lineage of ancestors from Central America, and many of them are of Mayan descent, and they invite me into seriousness. They invite me into my soul's work. They invite me into miracles, right? Seeing miracles, witnessing miracles. And then I have another lineage that is from Southern Europe, and many of them wish to, I'll say that even though there are similarities, like everyone sort of emerged through lines of poverty and different types of colonization, my Southern European ancestors are always trying to invite me into joy, invite me into surrender, invite me into feeling the full spectrum of emotions and allowing all of it. I've often said to people that in this body I hold DNA and the cells, really, of both the colonized and the colonizer, right? And the ancestors have been present to help me with that understanding and reconciliation. I'm not the only one for which that happens. If you're watching and you feel like you have a connection to your ancestors may be present to help you work through that as well and understand it, right? There's nothing to solve or fix. It really is just coming into understanding with yourself. There is a difference in the type of ancestors that I work with, not just between my lines, but between those who are recently passed and between my long, long lineage. So I'll pull an example because it's okay. They've allowed me to. My parents are both passed away, and I connect to them on a regular basis. Because they're more recently passed, there are more memories they have of this existence. It's almost like there's an echo of their personality still in them. And so they have some of their humanness still there, which makes them less healed. Not in a bad way, no judgment, right? They're still working on their stuff though. It's all good, all is allowed. But my lineage, the lineages that go back generations, right? 10, 20 plus generations. Those are the folks that I work with on a more regular basis because they have had more access to remember wholeness and to allow their healing, right? I choose to connect with my lineage versus all the recently passed individuals because I am looking for healed, objective support, right? And I wanted to explain that distinction to people because sometimes people are scared to connect with a recently passed loved one. Maybe there's something they didn't heal while they were both alive, or maybe there's trauma that was incurred and they don't want to reconnect with them. You do not have to. You can go further back, way far back in your lines. That choice is up to you. And so I wanted to make sure you understood that nuance, right? That there's difference in it. Either way, whoever you're connecting with, that relationship is a partnership more than anything. My ancestors are here to support my highest expression, but I get to choose the path. Part of my journey of working with the ancestors, and I learned it the hard way, but part of it is learning that my ancestors do not know better than me. They are one form of input, but they are not an authority over me, right? They offer wisdom, and I get to decide. And that discernment has developed over time through daily devotion, through honoring our connection, through conversation, right? That's developed a really deep and secure attunement that I have with them, which is something you can do as well. And these practices, whatever I do in devotion, they help me be able to feel who's present, feel who's there for me, and feel if they belong to me or belong to you, right? Understand that oftentimes I'm connecting to a collective of ancestors. And oftentimes they are gifting me wisdom, and it is mine. I merge it with my own soul's voice, with my own wisdom, right? But it is a relationship more than anything. We are collaborating. I want to answer a question that comes up sometimes, especially on this channel. I've probably heard from one or two people about it. And that is, how do the ancestors work with what one might call source or God or creation energy? You get to choose the word that feels good to you. I often use creation. I often use love. I often use divinity, right? Sometimes I use God. It is really up to you. But that relationship between the ancestors and divinity is an active collaboration. It is not passive. They collaborate with Source from a place of earned wisdom, right? They were warriors on the front line. They lived this human existence, right? They know what it was all about. They persevered through human challenges. And so they collaborate. They're at the front lines with the divine together, right? Also, their collaboration between both energies, when really it is all divinity, but that collaboration isn't necessarily like peaceful and always angelic, right? It is dynamic and it is active and it is creative. And different ancestors offer different perspectives, different approaches on how to help me, on how to support me and how to support you, right? So there may be competing or contrasting views presented by the ancestors, especially when it comes to divinity or pursuing the spiritual path. Sorry, I'm just having a recognition that I'm making this video in the Trecena of Akpu in the Mayan Sacred Calendar, and that is all about divinity, finding divinity in all, finding divinity within ourselves, walking our spiritual path. So I'm understanding now, I'm having like a real-time realization of like why they invited me into this. I think there's some witnessing of the development of my spiritual path that I keep being invited into. And they're inviting you into it as well. But the ancestors work with the spiritual path in an active way, right? And they're always working for our highest good. Sometimes there's creative tension as they figure out like the best ways to support us, but they're always working for what is in highest and best for you. I think what's most important to remember, and I think that's why they wanted me to say this, and then I have some messages to give you from them, is that you remain the queen or the king of your own emotional and spiritual domain. They honor your right to choose what resonates with you. And that feels like a celebration of spiritual maturity, right? You have the emotional intelligence and the intuitive wisdom to receive their guidance from a place of strength and not dependency. And it took me a while to learn that. And I retain the rights over my emotional landscape, over my spiritual landscape, right? I have agency over my life, and so do you. but they can offer a dynamic, creative process and support to help you as you grow. But you make the final heart-centered decisions, right? It's up to you. Today, I would say that all of this culminates in the fact that I will be truthful with you. Much of this makes me a psychic or medium because I can connect to those who have passed, my folks who have passed, your folks who have passed. But my path is not to be a psychic or a medium. My path is to help you hear your own soul's wisdom. I do that by sharing from all of my channels to help you remember that you have these gifts too. That there's no need to go outside of you for answers, that they're all right here. And I say they're all right here in the soft, tender flesh of your body, but they're really in your soul, which is an essence, right? Which is an energy that moves through you. I'm just listening. I have developed these ancestral gifts, this way of connecting, this way of healing in relationship with the ancestors. And they want you to know that you are developing it, or you can develop it too, so that you remember you are not alone and you never have been. Even when you live on your own and you get up and you go to work and you go home and you make your own meal for yourself, like, you could never be alone if you tried to. I mean, you can, but in reality, when all the dimensions merge, your people are there with you. And it's only upon you to talk to them. So this is the best part of the message, because the ancestors gave me some very direct messages to transmit here with you. And it's very sweet and very tender when they do that. Often this is a collaboration, but they specifically wanted to say this. And I think this is why they were excited for me to come in. It's completely normal to feel confused and overwhelmed when you first start sensing any spiritual presence within you or without you. There are so many energies and so many voices going on all the different dimensional levels. And it's upon you to learn discernment. And that discernment takes time. There's no rush. Some of you are scared to talk to the ancestors. And they wished for me to explain it this way because I understand nervous system regulation. The scary feeling is usually just your nervous system responding to the unknown. It's not actual danger, okay? Ancestors exist in the realm of intuition and dreams and your inner knowing. And if you've never trusted that space before, if you've never trusted your inner world before, it may present as fear. But you can trust your inner knowing. You can trust your intuition. You can trust what you see in your dreams. You can trust what you hear. It's not scary. It's just sort of like your nervous system adjusting. And the final invitation, in order to cut through all the cultural myths and misconceptions, is that your ancestors are here to help you. They're here to protect you. And they're here to guide you, not harm you. And you get to decide what you do with all that guidance that comes your way. And how lucky are we? Like, I wake up feeling so grateful when I know that I have this support behind me, no matter what. So I hope this message supports you. I hope it's helpful. I understand why I was meant to make it. And I didn't at first. So I'm just glad that I could make it for you today. And if you have any questions about the ancestors and working with them, you working with your own lineage or like the collective in any way, then please put them in the comments and maybe I'll make a video about it. And I think that's all for now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I promise I will be back again very, very soon.